Hi class, we're going to talk about chapter 3 in the righteous mind. I want to try to give you some help as you move forward. The thesis of this entire chapter, he's trying to make an argument that intuition comes first. It is primary. The elephant reacts first. Strategic or conscious reasoning comes second, right? So if you think about the social intuitionist model, there's a triggering event, there's an intuition first, judgment second, reasoning, because it takes longer to get to conscious thought, to process and all that, is last. He wants to argue this happens in moral judgments, that we make judgments before we're even aware we've made moral judgments, right? Because our elephant has already made them. He wants to defend this thesis using research from a lot of different areas, right? So he's trying to find different avenues to help support this claim that intuitions come first and strategic reasoning second. So some of the early studies, so I'll talk some about them. Jonathan Haidt himself and some graduate students did a study around hypnosis. And they basically brought participants in that agreed to be hypnotized. Half the group they hypnotized such that when they heard the word often, they would have a disgust trigger. They're not going to throw up or anything, just a twinge, an affect-laden intuition of disgust when they heard the word often. The other half, they hypnotized them so that they would feel the same feeling when they heard the word take, right? So half hypnotized so that often provides a little bit of disgust, the others take. Then they gave them moral vignettes, 6 of them. 3 of the vignettes had the word often in them. The other 3 had the word take in them. And they just wanted to see how it would impact people's responses. And sure enough, trying to make moral evaluations on these case studies they were given, if often was your disgust word, then you judged the vignettes that had the word often more harshly. If you had the take as your disgust word, you did not judge the vignettes with the word often very harshly. But it was reversed. If your disgust word was take, you judged the vignettes where the word take was shown more harshly. And you didn't if the word often was used. The argument is these subconscious, hypnotized words that create just a twinge of negative emotion affected the moral judgments that were being made on the page. It should not have an impact if moral judgments are rational. If my moral judgments come from my reason, then what I'm feeling shouldn't matter. But what I feel does seem to matter a lot for my moral judgments. And so this suggests, again, intuitions come first, right? There's a famous study called the dime study. It bothers me every time I talk about it because it's so tricky. I don't want it to be true, but it seems to be true. Here's how it worked. Back in the day, so it's like about 20 years ago, payphones were still a thing. They were in a large city, and researchers essentially wanted to see how people would respond given them finding a dime or not finding a dime. Would that make any difference? So what they did is they went to a payphone. They put a dime into the change return slot, you know, like if your coin gets stuck and you pull on the change thing, the lever, you know, there's a slot where your money's supposed to come out of, right? They just put a dime in that little slot. And so they wanted to see if people found it or not, right? And what happened. So then they're on a busy sidewalk. People are coming and going. They'd wait for somebody to use the payphone. And then they would send a researcher, as the person was exiting the phone booth, they had a researcher with books and, folders, and they would just drop their things in front of the phone booth, and they just wanted to see, would the person coming out of the phone booth stop and help pick up the books and the papers? That's it. They would then look inside the phone booth. Did the person find the dime and take the dime or not? So there's two conditions. Did you find the dime or not? Did you help or not? Right? One should have absolutely nothing to do with the other. It's a dime. Who cares, right? Good people help. Bad people, selfish people, self-absorbed people walk by. That's how it should work, right? But that's not how it works. What they found, the first time they did this, they had 23 subjects, 23 people that went in and used the payphone. Of those 23, 11 did not find the dime. Okay? 11 did not find the dime. Only one of those people helped pick up the books. The other 10 kept going. 12 people did find the dime in the slot. Of those 12, 11 helped. 11 out of 12 that found the dime helped. 1 out of 11 that did not find the dime helped. It seems that finding a dime makes a big difference on whether you help or not. They were so astounded, they ran this dime study in a bunch of different cities at major universities, and they find the same thing. Not that extreme, but a much higher percentage of people that find the dime help than not. The argument is, when you find a dime, it puts you in a slightly good mood. It's like turning on the radio and hearing a song you like. Your mood lifts slightly. That elephant change, you perk up, you're in a little bit better of a mood, makes you more giving. It's the intuition, it's the emotion that you're feeling that leads to the helping behavior, not reasoning it out, not thinking it out, right? It's the condition your elephant is in. There's another set of studies that have been done on seminary campuses around the United States. And the study goes something like this. They ask a group of students, they open it up, how many of you are willing in a week or two from now to give a 5 to 7 minute sermon on the Good Samaritan? So this gives you practice giving a sermon. You can earn a little bit of money from the grant that the researchers get. Who's willing to do it? And of course, seminary students sign up, at least some of them do, to prep a sermon on the Good Samaritan and then deliver it. When the day comes to deliver the sermon, they have students in 3 different conditions. One condition they call the rushed condition. This is what happens. They have the student waiting in a room. They come in, they say, "Are you ready to give your sermon?" They say, "Yes." And they say, "Well, you're going to be giving it across campus." They look at their watch and say, "Oh my gosh, we're actually running late. We need to get going." And they walk with the student across campus where they will give their sermon in a different room. On the way, they have planted a person sitting in a doorway of one of the buildings who is poor, clearly needs help, might even be hurt. He's saying, "Help, please, I'm hurting," right? And that, the student who's going to deliver the sermon, they don't know that it's an actor, right? They think it's a real person. They're on their way to give a sermon, right? Now they're walking past this person who's in need. Students that were in the rushed condition, stopped to help 15% of the time. That's it, 15%. You know what they prepped, right? They prepped a sermon on the Good Samaritan about walking past a person on the side of the road in need. But they felt like they were in a hurry, and so they walked on by. Other students, they would come in and say, "You're going to be giving a sermon. It's across campus. We're cutting a little bit close. We've got enough time, but we should probably go," like a moderate condition. Then they did the same thing, walked past. In this case, only 45% stopped to help. Seminary students preaching on the Good Samaritan, but much better than 15%, right? And then the third group, there was no time restraint. They said, "Hey, we've got some time. We need to walk over across campus. No sense of urgency. In that case, 70% stopped to help. Still only 70%, but you can see it gets better. Here's the deal. If you're a good person and you're a seminary student and you're learning about the Good Samaritan, you should stop to help. It doesn't matter about your lecture, right? You're giving a sermon, but you can actually help someone. Good people stop and help. Christians stop and help. Bad people walk on by. But that's not how it works. That's not how human beings work. If you are in a rushed condition, you are less likely to stop and help. If you have more time, you're willing to stop and help. Your elephant feels rushed, and you get more self-absorbed. I've got to get there. Emotions, intuitions come first. They drive judgments and behavior. You could rationalize after the fact why you didn't stop and help, but your reason is not why you didn't stop and help. You did not give you did not look at the person hurting and think, I'm going to come up with a good reason not to help. You just were rushed, you had anxiety, and so you kept going. It's emotion, it's anxiety, it's stress, right? It's an elephant issue, not a rider issue. Just a side note, how many of you are pressed for time most days? How many of you have more to do than you have time to complete it in? I know I'm pretty rushed and pretty stressed. Just so you know, that makes it harder for you to see people in need, harder for you to respond, harder for you to listen to your kids, to stop and really be present. Hard to be Christian, right? We don't act our best selves when we have no margins. Another piece of evidence, they mention here social and political judgments are intuitive. There's a thing called implicit bias test. These are online. You can take them at your computer for free, and they test your bias, like your racial bias, your bias about age, your bias about gender, your political biases. It's really fascinating. So I put a link on Canvas under modules, the week 1 module. It says implicit bias test. I encourage you to go to there and look around. It's not just implicit bias tests. There's all kinds of moral dilemma tests and things. You can actually be a participant in some of these studies that you've been reading about in Haidt. It's really great. It's free. Your information is anonymous. They do ask for demographic information, but no identifying information. I really encourage you to go. Implicit bias is just a way of testing the biases of your elephant, the biases of System 1. And one of the ways they do it is they test political bias. So they have in one corner, like in the upper left corner of your screen, is a picture of Barack Obama. In the upper right-hand portion of your screen is a picture of Donald Trump. Okay? And then they tell you every positive word, right-click to Donald Trump. Every negative word, left-click to Barack Obama. Cancer, left-click to Barack Obama. Sunshine, right-click to Donald Trump. Do it as fast as you can, right? So you read the word, right-click to Trump, left-click to Obama. It's fascinating. Here's what they find. When you fill out the demographic information at the beginning, with no name, nothing like that associated, but, you know, how do you vote? Are you religious? All that stuff. If you are a self-reported conservative, you are able to very easily click all the positive words to Donald Trump. Flowers, sunshine, love, boom, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. It makes it very easy for a self-reported conservative to left-click negative words to Obama, right? Cancer, death, Black Plague, all Obama. But when the reverse is asked of that person, now we want you to left-click all positive words to Obama. We want you to right-click all negative words to Trump. The conservative person struggles. They make more mistakes. They're slower. They have to think about it more. It's the opposite if you're a self-reported liberal. If you identify as a liberal, you can put all the positive words to Obama quickly, the negative words to Trump quickly. When they ask you to reverse it, it's very difficult. It takes you longer. I've done this. I can tell you, I'm subtly slower, right? Not a lot slower, but they give you the report at the end. I can feel myself having to think about it a little bit more. Where do I click, right? My elephant leans towards people I like, groups I like, and it leans away from groups I don't like. or I'm not a part of, right? But this suggests that even the picture of a political figure evokes my elephant. I'm already making judgments. I'm already, right, making certain decisions. I'm convinced, as an example, that my mom is so opposed to global warming and climate change. She's really opposed to it because she just does not like Al Gore. She never did. He's a Democrat. She hated Clinton. And so because he's the one who promoted it early on, she just had a visceral elephant-like reaction. All of the evidence suggests climate change is real and it's problematic and it's going to hurt the poor first, right? The data is on the side of climate change, but when some group has identified, namely liberals in this case, the elephant leans away and has a very hard time listening well, right? And then we find reasons to reject it. Well, maybe it's just a naturally occurring cycle. Maybe. Of course, that's possible. But there's also a good chance that the way humans are producing carbon dioxide is a big problem, right? I mean, that's the #1 reason for the warming of the globe. So while it's possible that it's something else, that doesn't feel like a good reason not to respond globally, right, to climate change that's affecting especially the poorest. If someone said, most of the evidence suggests that your child is really, really allergic to peanuts and they might kill him, of course, it could be just that he has a virus that's going to go away soon, right? So the evidence suggests it's a peanut allergy that could kill him, but we're not sure, and it might just be a natural phenomena like the flu. You better believe I'm not going to feed my son peanuts. I'm going to err on the side of caution. I'm not, right? So if there's a chance that humans are responsible for climate change, if there's a chance that that's the case, it seems like we would want to do everything in our power to care for creation and to limit our destruction of the planet and of our resources, right? So we have an emotional reaction, a visceral intuitional reaction, but the reasons we often give don't match up, right? It's not a rational thing, it's more of an emotional thing that's tied to our political allegiances, our political tribes. Humans by nature, biologically, are tribal, right? I like the Mets, I like the Yankees, that's my tribe. I meet someone that's also a fan, oh, we're friends now, right? I'm tribal in my religion. I'm a Nazarene. This is part of my tribe. I know people who are Nazarene. I tend to gravitate that way. But someone who's Buddhist, I'm a little bit more skeptical of. They're a religious outsider. We do this with neighborhoods. I think we do this politically, right? Political tribes. But our elephants start to get shaped. Our intuitions start to get shaped by our tribes, and they make us less consistent and less rational, right? They make it so that we have an incredible bias often in one direction or another, politically, as an example. So we have to be mindful of the ways in which our elephants have been tribal, co-opted by various groups, and the ways in which they cause us to not see things as clearly as maybe we should. Some other examples from the text that are supporting the thesis. Intuitions come first. Emotions come first. They are primary. Reasoning comes second. It's not that reasoning is unimportant. Reason is important. Let me stop for a minute. Reason is really important. Haidt is not saying that reason does nothing. Remember links 5 and 6 of the social intuitionist model. Reason can have a dramatic impact. It's very important that we become more rational over time. It's just not the strongest or the primary thing, right? So they mention the fart spray. I love this. They just basically have researchers on a corner next to a trash can, and they're asking people, will you fill out these moral evaluation surveys? You pick it up, you look at it as a participant, it's a case study, talks about Robert stole some money, did this or that. How should Robert be punished? 5 different options, very severe to like minimal. The next vignette, same thing. There's kind of a moral judgment required. How severe should it be? It doesn't take the participant very long. They fill it out. They give it back to the researcher. They go on their way. What they don't realize, the participants, is They'll spray fart spray into the trash can so that it just stinks. I mean, the whole street corner reeks. And they have them fill the survey out in the midst of a stinky environment. The people that fill it out in that environment are more harsh. Their punishments are more severe than people who fill out that survey that are not on the stinky corner, not near the fart spray. They've actually done this where they do some participants fart spray, some participants no smell, some participants do it outside of a bakery, a pleasant smell. Those that fill it out outside of a bakery are actually more lenient. What does fart spray or bakeries have to do with moral judgments? Well, they affect our elephant, they affect our intuition, they evoke disgust, they make us more judgmental. Many of our moral judgments, whether we like it or not, are because of the tribe we're a part of, the out-group we don't like, the disgust that's been triggered, our emotions at the time, how much sleep we got, did we find a dime in the phone booth. These things shouldn't affect our judgments and our actions, but in fact they do. Studies show that if you are listening to a song you enjoy, you're more likely to roll down your window and give money to a homeless person on the corner holding a sign asking for it than if you're not. It triggers a boost in mood, it shifts your elephant, and you become more generous. The last thing I would like to highlight, number 6, he mentions Joshua Green. I have posted an article by Joshua Green to Canvas under modules, the week 1 module. If you're interested, it's only about 4 pages long, and it's showing how he has used MRI research to look at what's happening in your brain and how that affects your moral judgments. It's fascinating. It's incredibly fascinating. I will end up highlighting Joshua Green's research in a later lecture where I'm going to have you take some of these surveys. I call them moral sense tests, right? But Joshua Green's point is, if you give someone a dilemma where they have to pull a lever, a trolley's out of control, right? The trolley's going to kill 5 people that are on the tracks. You can pull a lever and the trolley will be diverted and it will kill 1 person instead of 5, right? Should you pull the lever or not? Many people have a very intuitional judgment that they should pull the lever. Kill 1 instead of 5. If the vignette is changed even slightly, there's a trolley that's out of control, it's going to kill 5 hikers, or you can push a very large, heavyset man in front of the trolley, and it will stop. He will stop the trolley in time, so you'll kill 1 to save 5, but you have to push this man to his death. Now most people think that's wrong. Like you can't push this person to their death. That would be an immoral thing to do. So it's okay for me to pull a lever to kill 1 to save 5, but not okay for me to push someone to kill 1 and save 5. Why? What's the moral difference, right? What Joshua Green found is when they do MRIs and they're monitoring your brain activity as you answer these questions, when it's impersonal, like pulling a lever, the emotional centers of your brain are not very active. The mathematical, rational parts of your brain are more active. Kill 1 to save 5 just makes sense. But when you have to push, they call it a personal dilemma. Impersonal, pull a lever. Personal, push someone to their death. When it's personal, your brain reacts differently. As you're reading that vignette, the emotional parts of your brain become more active. The rational parts of your brain become less active. Now it feels wrong to push someone to their death to kill 1 to save 5. You become less mathematical. And so you're not a rational person choosing to pull a lever versus not, or push someone or not, but rather what determines what you do is how your brain immediately responds. Are the emotional centers more responsive in your brain, or are the rational centers more responsive in your brain? And a lot of it depends on, is it an impersonal thing or a personal thing? As a side note, this makes me think about current warfare, where we can have a drone strike. Someone thousands of miles away on a computer can launch missiles. That's not the same as killing someone up close. It becomes easier to do it when it's impersonal, much more difficult when it's personal. Or I think about my meat eating. If I had to kill my own animals, I probably wouldn't do it. But since I'm removed from all of that and it's nicely packaged with no bones and I can almost just pretend like it never came from an actual animal, it's a lot easier, right? So personal versus impersonal, but a lot of it is about the brain activity and how that impacts the judgments that we actually make. The final part of the chapter is that Haidt agrees with David Hume. Emotion comes first, reason comes second. But Hume went too far. He stated things too egregiously. So there are studies that suggest if you have people read these moral dilemmas or these moral vignettes, and then you do not allow them to answer right away, you make them take time to think about it, you present them with good reasons for and against, the person makes a much more rational decision. Less elephant, more rider. If you have people read case studies and vignettes and respond immediately, they end up more elephant, more intuition, emotion, less rider, less reason. So if we structure things in a way that forces us to slow down, forces us to think about good reasons, we become more rational. So in our own lives, we have to be conscious of this. When do you have to push pause on a fight between you and your spouse, an argument? Calm down. Don't talk to their elephant. Slow down, calm down, go to sleep, talk about it the next day so you can talk to their rider, so that your elephant's not so evoked, right? Force yourself to calm down, slow down, think about reasons, and become more of a rider person, less of an elephant person. So Hume goes too far, almost like I'm a slave to my elephant, but the evidence suggests the rider can begin to train the elephant, the rider can train that elephant over time to become more like the person they would want to be in the world.